Top 5 prison escapes that shocked the world. Smash that subscribe button, hit like if you feel your pulse rising, and drop a comment if you think you've heard it all, because tonight's story crawls into the cracks where steel bars, human desperation, and betrayal collide. The night the walls failed. The alarm should have screamed. At 2:17 a.m., the outer yard of Blackridge Penitentiary sat under a winter moon, the kind that makes concrete look like bone. Cameras blinked. Floodlights hummed. The perimeter fence, 3 layers of steel mesh topped with razor wire, stood quiet, obedient, and utterly blind. When the count came in 5 minutes later, one cell was empty. Not unlocked. Not broken. Empty, as if the man inside had evaporated. By dawn, the world would know his name. Marcus Vale had been locked away for 12 years, armed robbery, aggravated assault, a sentence meant to keep him buried until his hair went grey. He was not famous. Not notorious. Not the kind of inmate whose mugshot ended up on posters. Which is why the escape sent a shiver through every warden's spine from Colorado to Copenhagen. Because this wasn't a riot. This wasn't a hole in the wall. This was a disappearance from a fortress that bragged about never losing a man. The first patrol found it, a bed made too neatly, a toothbrush aligned with military precision. The mattress hadn't been disturbed. No blood. No struggle. No note. The only thing missing was Marcus Vale, and the silence where he should have been breathing. Detective Lena Morales arrived before sunrise. She had the walk of someone who'd learned to move fast without showing it, a coat pulled tight against the cold. She didn't look at the cell first. She looked up, at the cameras, at the catwalks, at the guard tower whose window reflected nothing back. "Run the tapes," she said. They did. And they froze the room. Between 1:58 and 2:06 a.m., the feeds went dark, every camera along the west corridor, every angle of the yard, every gate sensor tied to the outer fence. 8 minutes. No alerts. No error codes. The system rebooted itself like nothing had happened. When the picture returned, the prison looked exactly as it had before. Except one man was gone. The warden called it impossible. The union called it sabotage. Morales called it a plan. Marcus Vale had a reputation inside. Quiet, observant, the kind of inmate who listened more than he spoke. He worked laundry. He read law books. He wrote letters he never mailed. Guards described him as compliant. Inmate informants said he kept to himself. No enemies. No obvious allies. No history of escape attempts. Which made the questions louder and uglier. Who helped him? What did they miss? And why now? The first clue came from a guard named Peter Hanlon, a 10-year veteran with a record clean enough to frame. He reported something strange from his 1:45 a.m. round. A faint vibration under the catwalk near the west corridor. He'd felt it through his boots, like a truck idling underground. He dismissed it as fact. He wrote it down anyway. Morales didn't. She ordered a ground scan. Beneath the corridor, beneath layers of reinforced concrete, they found a scar, a narrow tunnel, just wide enough for a man to crawl. It ran toward the storm drains beyond the fence line, then disappeared into darkness. The tunnel wasn't crude. It was clean, measured, reinforced with scavenged metal. It had taken months. Maybe years. The prison had been hollowed from below. By noon, the story broke. Helicopters cut the sky. Roadblocks locked down the county. The headline spread across screens in 3 languages. Inmate vanishes from MaxSec prison. Social media lit up with maps and theories. Armchair experts debated rope ladders and fake uniforms. But Morales wasn't looking at the internet. She was looking at the prison's past. Blackridge had been built on old infrastructure, abandoned utility lines, forgotten drainage systems from a different century. The blueprints were incomplete. The city had changed hands. Records had been lost. If Marcus Vale knew where to dig, someone had told him. The second clue came from the infirmary. 3 weeks earlier, an inmate named Elijah Crow had died of what the report called natural causes. He'd collapsed during evening count. No autopsy, his family declined. Crow had been a lifer, a machinist before prison, a man with hands made for precision. Morales pulled his file and felt the cold creep up her spine. Crow and Vale had worked adjacent shifts in laundry for 6 months. Crow's bunk was searched. Under the slats, taped with care, they found a sketch, smudged, hand-drawn, annotated with measurements. A map of the West Corridor. A line descending. Numbers circled. Dates crossed out. And in the corner, a phrase written small, like a promise. 8 minutes. 8 minutes, the exact length of the blackout. Morales brought the sketch to the tech chief. He stared at it too long. "That's not inmate work," he said finally. "Those measurements, that's insider knowledge." The investigation widened. Guards were questioned. Contractors were flagged. A maintenance crew had worked the West Corridor late last year, replacing Conduit. One name stood out: Daniel Kessler. Temporary hire. Clean record. Gone before the escape. His last known address led to a storage unit, empty except for a generator stain and the smell of oil. Outside the prison, a storm drain was found pried open. Inside, footprints, muddy, size 11, headed toward the river. Dogs lost the scent at the waterline. A fisherman reported seeing a man at dawn, soaked and shaking, climbing into a van with no plates. The van was never found. By nightfall, Interpol was on the call. Because Marcus Vale wasn't just missing. He was moving. A credit card flagged in a border town. A gas station camera caught a man with a hood low over his eyes, a limp that hadn't been there before. A voice message left on a payphone line to a woman who'd changed her name twice. Vale's sister. The call lasted 12 seconds. She cried afterward. She wouldn't say why. Morales flew out to interview her. The apartment was small, clean, and terrified. The sister swore she hadn't helped him. Swore she didn't know where he was. Then she asked a question that didn't fit. Did he get out clean? She said. Or did it cost him? Back at Blackridge, the tunnel was fully excavated. Near its midpoint, they found a blood smear. Not much. Enough to matter. DNA came back fast. It wasn't Marcus Vale's. It belonged to a guard. Peter Hanlon was pulled from his shift and sat down under fluorescent lights. He looked older than he had that morning. He said he'd never been in the tunnel. He said he'd felt the vibration and done his job. He said he didn't know Crow. He said he didn't know Vale. Then Morales slid the final piece across the table. A time card adjustment. 8 minutes added to Hanlon's shift on the night of the escape. Approved by a supervisor who'd been on vacation. Hanlon's hands shook. Outside, sirens wailed as another alert came in. This one from a coastal city, hundreds of miles away. A body had washed up near the docks. Male. Middle-aged. Hands scarred like a machinist's. The coroner's preliminary note mentioned something odd. Concrete dust in the lungs. But when they turned the body over, the face wasn't Elijah Crow's. And when Morales opened the sealed evidence locker back at Blackridge, the one holding Crow's sketch, it was empty. Whatever had escaped Blackridge hadn't stopped moving.
And when they opened the locked maintenance basement beneath the West Corridor, the place no one remembered to search, what they found changed everything. The blueprint of freedom. The locked maintenance basement smelled like rust, wet cement, and secrets that had been breathing underground for decades. When Morales stepped inside, her flashlight beam caught on something that made her stop cold. 5 chalk marks on the wall. 5 dates. 5 prisons. Blackridge was only the first. The room wasn't just a forgotten storage space. It was a planning hub. Old blueprints were pinned to corkboards with rusted nails. Prison schematics from different countries, different eras. A French correctional facility near Marseille. A high-security prison in northern England. A remote complex in Eastern Europe known for holding organized crime figures. And 2 in the United States. Each blueprint was marked the same way. Utility tunnels circled in red. Camera nodes crossed out. Timing windows written in careful block letters. 8 minutes. 6 minutes. 10 minutes. Windows of blindness. This isn't one escape, Morales said quietly. It's a system. Interpol moved fast after that. What had looked like a singular miracle was unfolding into something far more dangerous. A coordinated operation designed to pull men out of the most secure prisons on Earth. Men who shouldn't be free. Men who knew things. men who had been deliberately buried by the justice system. And Marcus Vale was only the beginning. The second escape happened 9 days later. HMP Greywick, England. No riots, no alarms. A convicted financial crimes broker named Oliver Haynes vanished during morning roll call. His cell was sealed, his window intact. Surveillance footage showed him entering the cell the night before and never leaving. British authorities initially dismissed any connection to Blackridge until they found the tunnel. Shorter, cleaner, built through an abandoned sewage line no longer listed on modern schematics. The cameras covering the corridor experienced a synchronized software update lasting exactly 6 minutes. Same signature. Interpol cross-referenced inmate profiles. Vale and Haynes had never met. Different crimes, different countries, different worlds. But they shared one thing. Both had testified, quietly, years earlier, against powerful people. Vale had given sealed statements about a private security contractor laundering money through prison labor programs. Haynes had cooperated in a closed-door inquiry into offshore accounts tied to defense procurement in Europe. Both testimonies had gone nowhere. Both men had been locked away, forgotten, until someone remembered them. The media caught on. Headlines shifted from "How did he escape?" to "Who is helping them?" Online forums exploded with a new phrase. The locksmith, an invisible architect rumored to specialize in impossible extractions. No face, no name, no confirmed sightings. Just a trail of empty cells and humiliated institutions. Morales hated the nickname. It made it sound clean, professional, almost admirable. This was not that. This was selective liberation. The third escape didn't involve a tunnel. It involved a corpse. ADX Ravenhold, Eastern Europe. A prison designed to isolate inmates so completely they forgot the sound of another human voice. An inmate named Tomasz Kroll was pronounced dead after collapsing in his cell. Heart failure. Case closed. Except the body in the cell wasn't Kroll. Dental records didn't match. Fingerprints were wrong. The man was a substitute, dying from an overdose, planted to take Kroll's place. Kroll had vanished through the supply chain. A food delivery truck entered at 4:12 a.m. and left at 4:29 a.m. The driver was legit. The paperwork clean. The cameras flawless. Too flawless. Morales stared at the footage frame by frame. The truck never stopped moving. But for 3 seconds, the image warped, barely noticeable unless you knew where to look. 3 seconds was enough. Interpol began to see the pattern. This wasn't brute force or chaos. It was patience. Long cons, deep access. The kind of operation that required money, influence, and people on the inside who didn't even know they were part of it, or thought they were doing the right thing. Back in the U.S., Peter Hanlon finally broke. He hadn't been paid, he said. He hadn't even known the full plan. A man posing as a federal auditor had approached him months earlier, claiming Blackridge was under internal investigation for human rights violations. Hanlon was told to report infrastructure anomalies quietly, vibration, cracks, irregular power draws, helping oversight. They called it. By the time Hanlon realized something was wrong, Elijah Crow was already sick. Crow had collapsed days before the escape, coughing up dust and blood. He'd refused to talk to medical, refused to name names. Crow hadn't died of natural causes. He'd worked himself to death finishing the tunnel. Morales felt the weight of it settle in her chest. This wasn't just about criminals escaping. It was about disposable people, used up in arrays on both sides of the bars. The fourth escape shattered any illusion that this operation avoided violence. San Quentin Ridge, California. An inmate transport convoy never arrived at its destination. The road camera footage showed a sudden fog, thick, unnatural. When the fog cleared, the convoy was empty. Doors open, engines running. 2 guards were found alive but unconscious. One later died from internal injuries. The escaped inmate was Victor Salgado, a former cartel accountant who had turned state's witness in a sealed case involving international banks. This time, the public panicked. Governments issued statements. Prison systems promised reviews. Borders tightened. Airlines flagged passenger lists. But the escapes didn't stop. They adapted. Morales finally got the break she needed from an unexpected place. A data analyst in Berlin who noticed something chilling. Every escape date aligned with a major political or financial distraction. Elections, market crashes, terror alerts, noise. Someone was hiding liberation inside chaos. And then came the message. It arrived not through official channels, but through a journalist Morales trusted. A boner email, routed through half a dozen dead servers. No demands, no threats, just a list. 5 names, 5 prisons, 1 circled in black. The last name hadn't escaped yet. Morales recognized it instantly. The man was still inside, and if the pattern held, he wouldn't be for long. She looked at the final line beneath the list, written with unsettling calm. Freedom is not random. It is corrected. As Morales raced to coordinate lockdowns across 3 countries, a new alert cut through the room. A prison siren, a camera feed flickering, a blackout timer starting its count. And somewhere behind reinforced walls, another door was already opening. The ones who walked out. The final name on the list was Jonah Kincaid, former federal intelligence contractor, whistleblower, prisoner. Kincaid wasn't supposed to exist anymore, not in the public sense. His trial had been sealed, his testimony buried under national security exemptions. Officially, he was convicted of leaking classified information. Unofficially, he had exposed a private intelligence consortium that sold surveillance access to criminal networks in hostile states. People far more powerful than him had walked free. Kincaid hadn't. He was being held at Iron Heights Federal Facility, a prison so secure it didn't even appear on civilian maps. No tunnels, no supply trucks, no external contractors without biometric clearance. The kind of place built specifically to prevent the kind of miracles a locksmith had been pulling off. Morales arrived as the prison went into full lockdown. Steel doors slammed. Sirens echoed through concrete corridors. Guards moved with weapons raised, breath fogging in the cold air. The warden insisted they were early this time, that the pattern had been broken. Morales wasn't convinced. She walked the perimeter with her eyes, not her feet, looked for the absence instead of the floor. And then she saw it. The lights. Iron Heights ran on a segmented grid, fail-safes layered over redundancy. A full blackout was impossible. But at 2:03 a.m., one wing dimmed slightly. Not dark, just quieter, like the prison had held its breath. 8 minutes. Morales sprinted. They reached Kincaid's cell to find him sitting on the bunk, hands folded, calm as a man waiting for a train. The door was still locked, the bars intact. "You're early," he said. Morales froze. "You knew?" Kincaid nodded. "I knew when Marcus Vale walked out of Blackridge." "You orchestrated this?" she asked. "No," he said. "I survived it." He stood and stepped closer to the bars. His eyes were sharp, exhausted, and relieved all at once. The locksmith isn't breaking people out. He's correcting an imbalance. Before Morales could respond, the lights flickered again, this time throughout the entire facility. Not off, just wrong. A guard shouted. Another alarm triggered somewhere deep in the complex. Radios crackled with overlapping voices. Then the door behind Morales unlocked. She spun, weapon raised, but no one came through. Instead, Kincaid's cell door slid open. Morales stared. "Don't move." "I don't have to," Kincaid said softly. This was never about force. He stepped into the corridor. The prison didn't collapse into chaos. It malfunctioned politely, doors opening where they shouldn't, cameras looping footage from seconds earlier, systems obeying commands that hadn't been issued. A ghost was walking the machine. Morales chased Kincaid through corridors that seemed to rearrange themselves. Every turn that should have trapped him opened instead. Every response team arrived seconds too late. They reached the intake bay, where a single vehicle waited, unmarked, unarmed, untraceable. Kincaid stopped at the threshold and turned back. "You're wondering why you weren't stopped," he said. "Why you're here." Morales didn't lower her weapon. "Why?" "Because the locksmith needs witnesses," Kincaid replied, "not accomplices." The vehicle door opened. Inside sat a man Morales recognized instantly. Marcus Vale. Older, thinner, free. Vale met her eyes with something like apology. "We didn't escape," he said. "We were extracted." "By who?" Morales demanded. Vale smiled faintly. By the same system that buried us. The vehicle pulled away before Morales could stop it. By morning, Iron Heights issued a statement blaming a catastrophic software failure. International leaders called emergency summits. Stock markets dipped. Someone resigned. Someone else disappeared. And then the leak started. Not data dumps. Not dramatic exposés. Carefully curated documents released through journalists who didn't even know each other. Contracts. Emails. Financial trails linking prison labor programs. Intelligence outsourcing and organized crime. Names fell. Power shifted. Marcus Vale resurfaced in a South American country with no extradition treaty. Oliver Haynes was spotted in New Zealand, quietly cooperating with financial regulators. Tomasz Kroll vanished completely. Victor Salgado turned himself in, this time with evidence that dismantled 3 banks. They weren't hiding. They were finishing something. Morales was offered a promotion. She declined. Instead, she followed the pattern backward, found the origin point everyone had missed. The locksmith wasn't a person. It was a committee. Years ago, an internal oversight group had been quietly formed to investigate institutional corruption that traditional justice couldn't touch. Judges compromised. Prosecutors threatened. Whistleblowers silenced. The group dissolved officially after its funding was cut. Unofficially, it went underground. They didn't free the innocent. They freed the inconveniently truthful. And they used prisons, the very symbol of control, as their pressure point. Morales finally received one last message. No encryption. No burner. Just a handwritten envelope delivered to her door. Inside was a single sentence. Some doors are locked to protect what's inside. Others are locked to protect what's outside. And beneath it, 5 empty prison ID cards, all marked released. The world moved on, as it always did. The headlines faded. New scandals replaced old ones. The prison systems promised reforms that never fully came. But every now and then, a guard somewhere would swear a door open without a command. A camera would blink at the wrong moment. An inmate with dangerous knowledge would be transferred and never arrive. They thought the escapes were over. They were wrong, because the truth wasn't that prisons could be breached. It was that the system had learned how to let people walk out when it needed them to. And if this story got your heart racing, trust me, you're not ready for the next one. So don't blink, don't look away, and make sure you're subscribed.